What's up everyone and welcome to another Warframe video. It's that time again where the new Prime is released and it's time to update her build. The focus of today is of course going to be Hildryn Prime. Honestly, the build has changed a fair bit since I last made one for her, since there's a fair few new bits of modding tech that I wasn't utilising last time I made one. So let's start with her Prime buffs. What has changed for her? Well, she got buffs in 3 different areas: more health, which is kind of pointless for her for the most part, more shields, which is always nice, and slightly higher sprint speed, which is also nice, although maybe 0.5 increase isn't going to be particularly noticeable. Honestly, Hildryn is such a beast, it's kind of hard to give her too much without making her utterly broken, despite her being easily one of the best frames in the game already. Quick recap of her abilities. First ability turns her fist into effectively a statical, firing mini nukes. This can be modded to turn into something which can basically one-shot the world up to an extremely high level. Second ability will send out a wave. It's going to strip enemies of shields and armour and add them to Hildryn in the form of overshields. Third ability will link to both allies and enemies, dealing damage to enemies and increasing allies' shield capacity and recharge rate. And her fourth ability causes her to take to the air. She flies around the battlefield, raining down fire using balefires and dealing damage to enemies in close proximity to her. Enemies affected by the ability get lifted into the air and will drop energy orbs every so often. Activating again will cause her to slam to the ground, dealing damage. I'll be honest, this ability isn't that great in the grand scheme of things because it disables the use of pillage, which is her main survivability, as well as her energy bar, so this is going to be the ability which is going to get immediately taken off the frame. Her passive is also incredibly important, since she gets a 3-second invulnerability timer when her shield gate is activated, meaning when you play it right, you can get another pillage off during this time period and regain all of your shields, resetting the shield gate and pretty much making her invulnerable. Any ally linked via Haven, the third ability, will also gain this shield gate and as such make them incredibly hard to kill as well. Probably the best passive in the game, to be honest. So on to the all-important build, and honestly this is not a particularly new build. In fact, I've seen a fair few content creators take this build on, but I don't feel that they're pushing the power of this build as far as they can. We're going to be going for a build focusing around Blazing Pillage Augment, for a build that puts the old Ember World on Fire build to shame. We're going to be pushing shield amount with redirection, power strength with transient fortitude, blind rage, unbalanced intensifier, growing power, and molt augmented. That's going to give us a 100% strip when augmented is fully stacked. Adaptation's going to give us damage reduction to our shields, stretch for a bit more range on all our abilities, Arcane Vitality to give us the ability for the special effect of the heat proc for from Blazing Pillage being applied twice. Prime Sure-Footed is going to make it impossible for us to be knocked down. And then finally we've got Aegis for the shield regen upon taking damage, which is pretty much always up, since we're just going to be face tanking the world with this build. Then for the Balefire Prime we have a pretty typical straight damage build: Hornet Strike, Galvanized Diffusion, Lethal Torrent, Anemic Agility, Viral and Heat, and then Primed Fulmination. And that does stack with the range mod on the frame to increase the range of the explosion from both the charged and non-charged shot. As for shards, this is going to be one thing that I've not been able to cover before. We're going to be going with 4 reds and 1 yellow. All the reds are going to be power strength and the yellow will be cast speed, just to make things feel a bit nicer and a bit easier to play. If you really like her though, you can always throw all of your tail shards at her and push this build even further. All of this is great, but the final thing that really ties this build together is our Helminth ability, and that's going to be removing the 4th ability Aegis Storm and replacing that with Roar. Now, I know, it's not the most interesting thing to add as a Helminth, but hear me out. It's all about its interaction with Blazing Pillage and Arcane Vitality, and I think this is where a lot of the other builds have kind of missed a bit of a trick. Status procs double dip on Roar. The initial damage gets modified by Roar, and then so does the tick damage. But the trick here is that modified tick damage then gets doubled again by Arcane Vitality, meaning your procs hit so much harder, especially when you factor in removing all shields and armour. So what we have here is Roar giving a fairly obscene amount of damage increase to your procs, which is then doubled again by Arcane Vitality, and you just start burning the world to the ground. It takes this build to the next level, quite frankly. And then you combine this build with a weapon throwing out slash procs, something like a Pennant, a Hate, or a Colossus. And now you have slash procs being also buffed by this obscene roar, and you can slice an Acolyte once and then just ignore them while they bleed to death in a couple of ticks. There is one quick thing just to give a quick shout out for, and that is Mega's Glitch on your Operator. At max rank, this will make it so you don't take any form of penalty if you die while in your Operator form. Normally you would get stacks of Transference Static, which is absolutely brutal for Hildryn. At a single stack, you lose all of your shields until that static goes away, so managing to prevent that completely by using Mega's Glitch will make it so you can use your Operator a bit more freely without worrying you're about to nuke your frame when your Operator inevitably dies. Especially since your emergency not dying plan is to jump into your Operator for 5 seconds and hide while your frame's shields regen. This is an Arcane that is well worth investing in for all of you Hildryn mains. Normally this is where my videos I would go, so what do I think of this build, or the frame, or whatever. But since I've done multiple Hildryn videos at this point, it's pretty obvious I like her quite a bit. Honestly, she's easily one of the top frames in the game right now. Enormous survivability, huge damage, amazing team play. You really can't go wrong with her at all, to be perfectly honest. You can take her into literally any content and shred it with no problems whatsoever. She is an absolute beast. In all honesty, don't, this is going to be weird on a Prime video. You don't actually need the Prime. In fact, it might be one of the first times that a Prime really isn't that much of an upgrade over the standard frame. Most times the things that actually you get that changes the Prime meaningfully, but in Hildryn's case, only the shield buff is kind of relevant. And honestly, while it's nice to have, you can go without if you wanted. She plays exactly the same between the Prime and the non-Prime version. I don't have a huge amount more to say about Hildryn Prime. She is an incredible frame, well worth the investment. Stick some Former on her and just have an absolute blast. So I hope you enjoyed this quick video taking a look at the latest in Warframe Prime technology. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I shall catch you in the next video.